The views and opinions expressed on this podcast is solely of the creator and may not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the listener. Listener discretion is advised. ChatGPT and AI technology were not used or harmed in the creation of this podcast. All right. Okay. I'm trying this a different way. Hopefully this works. Almost. Hey guys, welcome back to Under the Moon Paranormal Ohio Legends. If you are new here, my name is Melanie, and I'm a gal from Ohio, and yeah, I'm doing this on a video format for the first time because Spotify says that it's better for you to do it this way, so we'll see how good this goes. So hi, hello, my name is Melanie, and welcome to Under the Moon Ohio Paranormal Legends. Under the Moon Paranormal Ohio Legends. So, I'm recording this on Riverside and my audio thing that I normally do, just in case this Riverside thing doesn't work. So, with that being said, the noises that you hear in the background is actually a fire noise from a fire pit that me and my husband recorded, so you'll hear like Under the Moon campfire type vibe that's what I'm going for anyway. Okay. So, Under the Moon Paranormal is my paranormal group that I created by just having a recorder and a digital recorder, digital camera, under the moon during the full moon, supermoon, which is what we have going on this month. So supermoon, blue moon. So when I'm really not used to doing this format, and like it keeps cutting out, and I don't know if it's doing it or not. But I have my audio going on my other way that I do this, so hopefully everything goes good. Okay, that's going good. But this camera keeps cutting out, and I'm just going to ignore it and go on with the show. So this is Under the Moon Paranormal Ohio Legends. My name is Melanie, and if my Ohio accent doesn't bother you too much, then I think we're going to get along just fine. So with that being said, brace yourself for plenty of activity as this Aquarius full moon rises on August 19th, bringing a whirlwind of unpredictable and intense energy to the collective, forming a harsh T-square with a rebellious Uranus. This astrological event is poised to be full of twists and turns. Foundations you once relied on may suddenly become unstable, and as the stars push each other to revolutionize our lives, the universe won't be afraid to deliver a bit of tough love, and there may be moments when you are forced outside of your comfort zone. So do your best to adapt when faced with the unknown, as clinging to tradition might not be an option. Saddled alongside the Leo sun, Mercury, who is currently traveling retrograde, guess what guys, Mercury's on Gatorade again, puts our words on full display. Bring more awareness to how you think and speak, especially while in the company of your peers. Okay, so you have to watch your words. The friendships you keep will have a direct impact on your ability to think clearly, and you will be wise to avoid gossip or ungrounded companions. Issues from the past could also emerge once more, though you'll have the chance to make better decisions this time around. When faced with situations or conflict that feels familiar, do your best to consider the highest path forward and what can be done differently. Interesting. That's interesting. Okay. think I lost my spot. Yeah, I did. Okay. Themes around perfection can also come into display as Venus, Mars, and Jupiter and Saturn form an additional T-square, especially when it comes to matters of the heart. If you have a tendency to hold others to unreasonable standards or have been uncompromising when seeking a mate, it may be best to reevaluate your approach to connection. If you've been struggling to find a partner that checks all the boxes, think about adjusting your expectations without lowering them. Consider dating outside of what you're typically attracted to when seeking a new partner in crime. This full moon will illuminate how being overly specific in our desires that can cut us from manifesting true happiness, marking the ideal time to expand your perspective on what is attractive. Excuse me. Though you may need to work on your expectations of others, you'll still want to watch out for red flags within your connections. Try not to blow minor issues out of proportion, and don't hesitate to draw lines when behaviors are unacceptable. Words will be cutting during this time. Words are like swords during this time, people, so be careful how you speak to people. Be sure to monitor your own mood when dealing with loved ones. If you start to feel more tightly wound and impulsive than usual, it could be an indication that you need to step back and recalibrate, okay? With Saturn active in emotional Pisces, it will be more important than ever that you find time to unpack your own thoughts and feelings. When this is all said and done, we could all feel slightly shaken up after this full moon. Try to have patience for the path that lies before you, understanding the importance of facing challenges head-on. Though this illumination promises to bring forth radical changes, major breakthroughs, or destruction, what matters most is how one changes ahead after being confronted with the unexpected. So, watch your moods, okay? Watch your moods. Watch how you talk to people, because Mercury is in retrograde all the way until the end of August. So we got like 10 more days. So excuse me while I take a drink real quick. Thanks. Okay. So now that we got the full moon out of the way, this episode's always going to come out on a full moon, okay? So just keep that in mind. Alright, so this month's topic, since it is the end of summer, next month we are going into our spooky season content. So I figured for the end of summer, let's do a theme park. Ohio has a couple of theme parks, okay? One is up north and one is south. Well, there's two down south. One's like an off-brand theme park with a lot of water slides. It's called Coney Island. The one up north is Cedar Point, I do believe. I've never been there. The one that, me and my family always frequented, and a lot of my friends has frequented, is Kings Island. It has wooden roller coasters. It's always themed. When I was a kid, it was themed with Hanna-Barbera stuff, like Flintstones and those kind of cartoons. Captain Caveman was always around. Yeah. Rocky and Bullwinkle. Hanna-Barbera cartoons. And then when I was a little bit older teenager, it was Nickelodeon. So it was like Rugrats and Hey Arnold and stuff like that. Now I think it's Snoopy themed. So we had like great childhood growing up going to the Kings Island. But this summer, in 2024, the Hamilton County Coroner's Office has released the cause of death for a man killed in a suspected collision with the Banshee roller coaster at Kings Island. A preliminary autopsy report shows 38-year-old, I'm not going to mention his name, died as a result of a blunt force trauma to the head and traumatic brain injury. He also suffered blunt force trauma to the body, which the report listed as a contributing factor to his death. He died of his injuries at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center on June 21st of 2024. The coroner's office previously listed his death as a suspected accident. Yeah, Kings Island officials have said that he was possibly hit by a ride while visiting the park on June 19th. He was in a restricted area to retrieve his car keys. He left his car keys, or they dropped out of his pocket while he was on the Banshee, possibly. Anyway, his car keys were in a restricted area, and he went to the restricted area to get his keys. That's what the Mason police have said. Kings Island personnel called dispatchers asking them to send paramedics to the roller coaster for someone who suffered a head injury. According to Warren County Communications Center records, dispatchers said the first responders reported Nelson was found with major head trauma and he was transported to the Westchester Hospital and then Corey Hospital in a helicopter. Okay, so inspectors awarded the ride with a satisfactory score for all applicable categories, including the presence of fencing, railings, gates, and as well as for functionable brakes and stops. Mason's police investigated remains open as investigators await documents from other agencies. So, the Banshee is a roller coaster. So this is from Coasterpedia. Like a Wikipedia, but for roller coasters. The Banshee is an inverted coaster that has been at the Kings Island Park since 2014. Coasterpedia says an inverted roller coaster has trains that run underneath the track. Unlike the older suspended roller coaster, the seats are attached directly to the wheel carriage, thus the vehicles do not swing outwards on corners. According to Kings Island's website, the Banshee travels up to 68 miles per hour and has a 167-foot lift hill. Alright, so what happened here? On June 19th, this man was riding the Banshee in Kings Island, and he lost his car keys, because sometimes that happens on roller coasters. So as he was leaving the park for the evening, he goes to get his car keys in a restricted area. He didn't ask any of the staff for help. He just went in there and got him himself. And the Banshee swooped down and got him. So that is not the only death at Kings Island. Alright? So I'm going to give you a timeline of Kings Island's history before we get into the hauntings. But this man's story actually inspired me to see, like, if there was any other deaths at Kings Island. And, yeah, apparently there is. So, here we go. In 1969, plans for the yet unnamed Kings Island were announced on March 28th. An amusement park, Taft Broadcasting, and Coney Island. The new park would replace the old Riverside Amusement Park, which was prone to frequent floods, lacked room for expansion, and would compete with the previously announced but never built amusement park Frontier Worlds in northern Kentucky. Okay. That's 1969. So 1970, ground broke for Kings Island on June 15th. The park received its name, a combination of Kings Mills, its location, and Coney Island, its predecessor, through a naming contest. Cincinnati's Coney Island continued to operate in the 1970s, but new additions were limited to those that could be easily relocated to Kings Island after the old park's closure. In 1971, construction for Kings Island continued. This is not working. Okay, Coney Island closed forever on September 6th in 1971, and many of its rides and attractions were immediately relocated to the new park. 1972, Kings Island, owned by Taft Broadcasting, officially opened on April 29th, 1972, 2 years after construction. Located approximately 30 miles north of Cincinnati, it's replaced Cincinnati's Coney Island, which was not only out of room to expand, but also prone to flooding at its riverbank location near downtown. So, International Street was the entrance to the park, themed as a European village, including an Eiffel Tower, a royal fountain, and the Kings Island Theater. Oktoberfest was a festive German-themed section with Bavarian Beetle, a steel roller coaster manufactured for Coney Island but got moved here, a rotor, a sky ride, and a spin kegger, like a little spin ride that looked like kegs. Okay, so Coney Island was homage to the park that Kings Island was built to replace, but it included racers, twin tracks, wooden roller coaster manufacturers, Tumblebug, Cuddle Up, Dog'em, Flying Carpet, Scrambler, Monster, Halley's Comet, and flying scooters and a carousel. Rivertown was an Ohio town in the mid-1800s. It included 2 canoe attractions, Kenton's Cove, Shawnee Landing, Kings Island, and Miami Valley Railroad. They actually had like little tiny train tracks in Kings Island. Kings Mill Log Flume, Wheel of Fortune, Ohio Overland Automobile Livery, and Les Taxi. Okay, which could also take you to the Coney Island section. Okay, so the Happy Land of Hanna-Barbera was a children's area based off the popular Hanna-Barbera cartoons. And those rides included Enchanted Voyage, Winnie Witch's Cauldrons, which is like spinning teacups, Rub-a-Dub, Marathon Turnpike, Scooby-Doo, which is now known as the Woodstock Express, Kiki Kangaroo, the helicopter ride, Auto Cat, known as the Peanuts Off Rally now, Motor House, Squiddly Diddly, Funky Phantom, and the Sky Ride Station. Neighboring attractions to the park included Kings Island Campground, Kings Island Inn, Jack Nicklaus Golden Bear Golf Center. The cast and crew of the Partridge Family visited the park in August to film an episode titled I Left My Heart in Cincinnati. The episode aired January 1973. A telefilm named The Banana Splits in Hocus Pocus Park, also partially filmed at the park in 1972 and aired in November of that year. 1972 was the final year for Kenton's Cove, the 2-person canoe attraction in Rivertown. 1973 new rides were added, the Barvern Carve and the Flying Dutchman. Kenton's Cove Keelboat Canal, the Nature Trail, Powder Valley Nature Trail, a new restaurant, International Restaurant, which is reportedly haunted today. And in 1973, the cast of the Brady Bunch visited the park in August to film an episode entitled Cincinnati Kids. The episode aired in November. 1974, a new era, the Lyon County Safari, known as Action Zone, was added. It is a 100-acre area, included 2-mile monorail, and it had live exotic animals, hundreds of them, to be exact. In May, Daredevil Carl Wallendena walked a 1,700-foot tightrope between 2 cranes above Coney Island. In December, Kings Island's theater collapsed under a heavy snowfall. The venue was rebuilt in the 1975 season. 1975, Coney Island section was expanded with 2 new rides, Giant Double Wheel, which was a Ferris wheel, and Tracheoka, which is Shake, Rattle, and Roll. A new midway was also added between Coney Island and Rivertown. In October, motorcyclist Evel Knievel jumped 14 Greyhound buses in the parking lot, setting a new world record. In 1976, a new theater, the American Heritage Theater Hall, today known as Kings Island's Theater, opened on International Street. The Giant Wheel was renamed the Zodiac, and the Tracheoka was named Shake, Rattle, and Roll. The Character House was added to the Happy Land of Hanna-Barbera. In April of 1976, 50 baboons escaped from the Lyon County Safari. On July 4th, musician Paul Revere and the band Paul Revere and the Raiders visited the park and was married in front of the new theater. Okay, we're going to talk about this one too. On July 24th, 1976, a safari ranger was mauled by one of the lions. Planning and designing began for a new wooden roller coaster later to be named the Beast. 1976 was the final year for the Shawnee Landing canoe attraction. 1977, a former Lyon County Safari section of the park was renamed Wild Animal Safari. They had a new looped roller coaster called the Screamin' Demon. Boulder bumpers, which was Joe Cool's Dodgem School now. New amphitheater. 2 new amphitheaters in 1977. The Kiki Kangaroo ride was renamed Wilma's Whirlybirds, and the Turnpike became the Turnpike. Okay. Dick Van Dyke was the park's commercial spokesperson in 1977, and on April 24th, 1977, the Sky Ride stalled and stranded 38 riders for up to 8 hours. In October, the park was hosted by the U.S. Peanut Olympics and Jimmy Carter's brother, Billy Carter. 1978, Tower Gardens replaced the original Kings Island's theater. There was a new Ferris wheel. College Football Hall of Fame opened up down the road. July 10th, Kings Island made an announcement that construction had begun on a new wooden roller coaster to be known as the Beast. In 1979, the Beast opened in Rivertown. On former spot of the Shawnee Landing, the wooden roller coaster was designed to build in-house by Kings Island staff, and the world's tallest, fastest, strongest roller coaster at its opening. It opened with the tagline, biggest, baddest, longest, fastest wooden roller coaster in the world. It's not bad. It's really not bad. Okay. The Kiddie Turnpike, known as the Peanuts 500, is a small car ride manufactured in the happy land of Hanna-Barbera. Okay. The Turnpike was renamed Speed Buggy. 1979 was the final year for Halley's Comet and Sky Ride. 1980, Maxi Taxi Rides, an upcharge elephant ride attraction, opened in the Wild Animal Safari. The Scooby-Doo roller coaster was renamed the Beastie, which was like the Beastie Baby from, the big one. Minor modifications were made to the Beast, including combining second and third tunnels into one longer one and fully enclosing the tunnel on the final helix. Okay, so the Speed Buggy in 1981 Turnpike attraction was renamed Flintstone or Firestone Speed Buggy Turnpike. Why do they keep renaming the Speed Turnpike? Alright. The Bat was opened in 1981. In 1982, the Hanna-Barbera land got a $2.1 million expansion. So they put like a whole bunch of new stuff in there. Okay. The Viking Fury was the largest swinging ship and opened in July of 1982. Winterfest was a social event in 1982. In 1983, on May 13th, a 17-year-old fell to his death from a restricted area from the Eiffel Tower. We'll talk about him too. The King Cobra was introduced in 1984. Smurf's Enchanted Voyage was also in 1984. Admission went up to $13.50 in 1984. In 1985, Whitewater Canyon was a new family raft ride. In 1986, the year that I was born, let's see what happened. Cinema 180, to accommodate the expansions, Flying Eagles were relocated down Coney Mall, and Flying Carpet was relocated to Hanna-Barbera Land. 1986 was the final season for the Zodiac ride. Okay. Adventure Village and the adjacent safari attraction began being referred to as Wild Animal Habitat in 1986. In 1987, the new looping roller coaster, the Vortex, constructed of 750 tons of steel, replaced the Bat. The new ride was manufactured by Aerodynamics and was the world's tallest continuous circuit roller coaster at its time with a record of 6 loops. I'll tell you what, the vortex will beat you up. Like, your head gets banged up pretty bad on that one. 1988, Amazon Falls, known as Congo Falls, was opened. In 1989, the water park was opened. In 1990, the Rushing River, the family inner tube raft manufacturing ride, was opened in Waterworks. 1990 was the final season for the Flying Dutchman and the Ferris wheel. 1991, a new family mine train, the Adventure Express, which is my favorite roller coaster, opened. On June 9th in 1991, we're going to talk about this day too. 3 people died. That's all I'm saying for right now. So, we're getting there, okay? 1992, the Phantom Theater was there. It was really cool. Now I think it was called, what is it called today? The Great Pumpkin Coaster is what it's called today. But when I was a kid, it was the Phantom Theater, and it was amazing. Okay, 1993, the final year of the wild animal habitat. So they turned away the animal habitat. 1994, Days of Thunder. 1995 was when they introduced Nickelodeon Splat City that took over Hanna-Barbera Land. And then Viacom purchased Paramount Communications in 1995. 96, the Outer Limits Flight of Fear, the fastest roller coaster in the world. That's also indoors. It's an indoor roller coaster that goes like 0 to 60 miles per hour in 1 second. 1997 was the final season for Skylab. Then 1998, they had Sky Tours, known as Woodstock's Whirlybirds now. James Bond Simulator in 1998. 1999, Paramount Active Zone and Drop Zone Face Off. Oh, excuse me. The year 2000, the Beast sequel was unleashed a massive new wooden roller coaster named Son of Beast, opened in Paramount Action Zone. It was the first wooden roller coaster with a loop, and I rode that with a loop. It doesn't have a loop now, but it did. So, in 2001, they had the Flight of Fear was renamed to just Flight of Fear in the final season for the King Cobra in 2001. 2002, the Tomb Raider the Ride, the Slingshot, and with the final season for the Phantom Theater. 2003, Delirium. Phantom Theater was replaced by the Scooby-Doo Haunted Castle. 2004, Waterworks was rebranded as Crocodile Dundee's Boomerang Bay. Nickelodeon's Celebration Parade was introduced in 2004. So yeah, we're going to skip ahead because timing and whatnot. Alright. So, 50th anniversary was in 2022, 2023. Okay, they relocated some Diamondback and Venture Express. The racers received more track. Okay. 2024, Snoopy's Soapbox Racers. So a lot of Snoopy stuff going on. Like rebranding happened in the past couple of years, so. That's cool, that's cool. Alright, so. We're going to start with the oldest ghost first. The oldest ghost, let me check on my time. Oh, yeah, we're good. Yeah, alright. So I like to go backwards a little bit. Let me check my notes. Yep, I got the history in there. Alright, so I'm going to add the cemetery to the, I always put links in the description of each episode so you know where I've been researching at, okay? So there is a cemetery located right there where you pull into Kings Island's parking lot. And a lot of people don't know about it. It's from like the mid to late 1800s. There's not very many people buried here. And as a matter of fact, the link that I'm going to send you is everybody that's buried there. There's not that many. There's a lot of kids, mostly. Just kids, and that's kind of sad if you ask me. Okay. So Kings Island's ghastly girl in blue. Late one summer night at Kings Island, a tram driver had just dropped off his last batch of guests. It's been a very busy evening for him, and he is relieved to be finished. However, he decides to take one last step or one last sweep through the parking lot to make sure that no one's left behind. He turns around and begins driving back around through the lot. Just a few cars are left. Behind him, the Eiffel Tower lights up the otherwise dark sky. Okay? The driver begins to pass through the Barney Rubble section of the parking lot, which is what is the farthest section to the left is called at this point. If you're standing on Kings Island Drive facing the park, to his right he can see one of the Kings Island's best kept secrets, the ancient tiny cemetery located between the section of the parking lot and what is then the campground. This driver has heard many stories about this cemetery from other tram drivers. That is, ghost stories is what we're talking about here, okay? He slows the tram down to crawl as he peers out of the graveyard. The edge of his headlights dimly illuminate this small patch of haunted ground. The longer he stares, the more it appears as though something is moving inside the cemetery. Strange shadows are appearing. At first, the driver can't believe what he's seeing, but then he realizes that this is just the shadow of the graves from his headlights, right? So silly me, he thinks. Sure, the cemetery is creepy, but is it really haunted? He chuckles at himself for once believing the other driver's stories, okay? He turns to face the main parking lot area. At the exact moment he looks up, his headlights suddenly illuminate a young girl in a blue dress as she runs in front of the tram. In a split second, the driver slams on his brakes and looks away, for the girl is too close to the moving tram to not be stuck. But no sounds come, no screams, no thud, no nothing. The driver turns back around. The parking lot is empty, just as it was a moment before the girl appeared. There is no damage to the other front of the tram, and there's nothing underneath it. The girl has completely disappeared. Poof, right in thin air. Gone. She has just vanished just as quickly and as suddenly as she first appeared. Maybe those stories really do have some credence, the shaken driver thinks to himself. And the next day he hands in his resignation. The tram driver is not the only person to have experienced this strange apparition. Dozens of reports of this little specter have been recorded since Kings Island opened. Who is this ghost, and why is she haunting the park? To answer this question, let's take a look at the history of the aforementioned parking lot cemetery. While most websites refer to this graveyard simply as Kings Island Cemetery, it does have a name. It's called Dog Street Cemetery. The cemetery's official name is Union Cemetery, HOF, with the Hoff used to distinguish between this graveyard and other Union cemeteries. It is affiliated with the Union Methodist Church, hence the name, and was founded in 1803. Most of the burials occurred from the 1820s through the 1880s. There was a burial in the 20th century, but it's not marked with the headstone. Records show at least 79 burials in this cemetery. When Kings Island was being built, construction workers had to figure out what to do with the cemetery. In 1970, the cemetery was forgotten and overgrown with many weeds. Many tombstones had toppled over or got lost with age. It was so overgrown and neglected that the construction workers had a hard time locating it, so excavation for the parking lot could even begin. The cemetery was preserved where it was, and it's cleaned up quite a bit. It's currently under the care of Deerfield Township trustees. Despite Union Cemetery's proximity to the road, especially with the road to the new toll booths winding right past it, Many people don't realize it's actually there. While some people still like to visit the cemetery to do genealogical research or just take photos of it with roller coasters in the background to post on their urban exploration websites, most come to visit the grave of the cemetery's most infamous resident, Missouri Jane. What is best known about Missouri Jane is that she's the daughter of Stephen and Nancy Galliner and had at least one sibling, a younger brother named William. She was born on June 27th, 1840, and likely lived on part of that land that would later become Kings Island. She died on March 10th, 1846, at the tender age of 5 years old and 8 months. She is buried in Union Cemetery, where she remains to this day. Her brother outlived her by 76 years. One question, though, many people have posted is, how did she die? The popular story is that she drowned in a lake where the Whitewater Canyon is currently located, thus explaining why she is particularly active in that area of the park. Unfortunately, I can't find any record of her in the 1846 editions of the Cincinnati Enquirer or the Cincinnati Post, due to time constraints. I was unable to check through 1846 editions of the Western Star newspaper as well. So for now, the official cause of her death remains a mystery. Shortly after Kings Island opened, security guards reported some very strange experiences. These encounters still continue to this very day. Due to the age and style and clothing that she's wearing, most believe that the ghost is of that of Missouri Jane. Interestingly enough, the apparition is always reported looking the exact same way as other sightings of her, down to her eye color. She is always described as having blonde hair, blue eyes, and her trademark blue dress. Over the years, Jane has seen almost everywhere over the park. Let's go over some of the areas where she is most encountered. The Union Cemetery. When an exit to Kings Island Drive used to be located next to the cemetery, I gotta move my legs, sorry. Tell you what, I don't like using a ring light. Okay. When an exit to Kings Island Drive used to be located next to the cemetery, drivers would often report seeing a little girl in a blue dress walking through the cemetery after dark, or peering through the fence towards the park. A tram driver once saw this girl in his mirror, and when he turned around, the cemetery was empty. So that's the story that I mentioned a little bit ago. Also, as mentioned, there was these tram drivers that would often see the ghost of Jane walk or run in front of oncoming trams. This happened so often, reportedly almost nightly, that the park employees began calling her Tram Girl. Tram drivers would also sometimes report seeing her sitting in one of the seats on the tram. These types of occurrences caused many tram drivers to quit right there. Trams were removed from the park several years ago, unfortunately ending these types of claims. While most stories from the front gate area are pretty ordinary, for Mary Jane sightings, security guard sees a little girl in a blue dress standing by herself after closing. When the guard walks up, she disappears. There's also one story in particular interesting from this area. Deborah Lance is the area psychic who participated in one of the several paranormal investigations that have taken place at Kings Island. She says, on my way out, I was walking with a gentleman, and he was on Ghost Hunters Academy. He was a finalist, and when we were walking out, we both heard a little girl giggling behind us. It totally freaked him out. He was like, holy crap, has never happened to me before, because he's skeptic, of course. I started laughing at him because this stuff happens to me all the time. Okay. The International Restaurant. While most often reported ghosts in the International Restaurant is that of a chef, Missouri Jane also sometimes has been spotted here. The International Restaurant gained infamy as one of Kings Island's haunted hotspots on a 2012 episode of Ghost Hunters. The team recorded one of their best ever iconic EVPs recordings while in the restaurant of a little girl saying, trying to find my mom. Kings Island and Miami Valley Railroad. Missouri Jane has reported often as seen on Fort Coney, which the train passes. It's possible that she lived in that area. Former supervisor Austin Eversole recalls, I hear she's been in the woods. Like there's an opening in the woods, a pathway, and when the train is going by, the employees say they see her running back there on the pathway, or she's just seen standing there watching the train go by. And they say she's a little blue dress every time. The interview with Eversole in 2015, apparently sightings have died down as every train employee I've talked to this season, which this is in 2017, told me they have not encountered anything out of the ordinary. Whitewater Canyon. Tower 2, where employees operate and supervise the ride, is reportedly one of the hot spots of activity on Kings Island's property. Many employees have reported encounters with Missouri Jane's playful ghost while in the tower, and most famous account of ghostly activity involves rocks being thrown at the side of the tower. The only problem is that there is no one around the tower when these things happen. Especially unnerving is that some employees actually see the rocks being picked up by an invisible being and thrown at the tower. Riders have occasionally reported looking up and seeing the actual apparition of the girl looking out the window of the tower in a blue dress. Other employees have reported hearing the sounds of a little girl giggling or singing when no one else is around. Austin Eversole reported, while I was up top working, we supervisors all got a call that there was a child left on Whitewater Canyon. There was a rides girl, and she was letting all the little rafts go by, making sure there was no one on it. And she thought she heard a girl talking and thought that she was still on the ride. So she stopped the entire ride and she did an emergency call. Well, we all had to run down there and make sure there was nothing going on. It ended up that there was nobody there. Okay. But that's about Whitewater Canyon. A recurring phenomenon throughout the park involves worried adults who tell ride operators late in the evening about a little girl in a blue old-fashioned dress walking around without her parents. This girl can never be located. In all accounts, security guards will see a little girl playing by herself long after the park is closed. This girl disappears into thin air when the guards try to get close. With all these stories, that leaves one question. Why? Out of all the people buried in the cemetery, why is Missouri Jane the only one who is most frequently spotted in the park? Several other children are buried in the cemetery, so dying young does not seem to be that only reason. Maybe she is searching for her parents, who are buried in a cemetery really far away from her in Illinois. Or perhaps she's like so many other people and just wants to come out and have fun around people that are having fun. You know, maybe she doesn't want to go find her parents. Maybe she's like, this is cool. I'm going to hang out here. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Is Missouri Jane the only ghost from this cemetery that haunts Kings Island? What do you think? Let me know. Okay. So, as we mentioned in the park's history, we're going to tap into the deadly day at Kings Island. Okay? The headline says, Deadly day at Kings Island with 3 deaths and 1 hospitalization. This is from the Cincinnati Enquirer. The day was Sunday, June 9th, 1991. 3 people were killed and a 4th person was hospitalized in bizarre sequence that involved 2 separate incidents in a little more than an hour apart. About 8:30 p.m., Timothy Benning, 22, of Marymount, was crossing a wooden walkway near Briar Garden Lake when he reached over to splash some water and was jolted by a shock and fell in. His friend, William Eddie Heathcote, Jr., age 21, of Oakley, the park security guard Daryl Robertson, who was 20, of Hamilton, both jumped into the water to save him, and both were fatally electrocuted. Only Benning survived, hospitalized with burns on his arm and his neck. Investigations by electrical experts and of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration determined that the two men had been shocked by a surge in an aerator pump that did not have a functioning ground fault circuit. OSHA fined Kings Island $23,000 for 7 safety violations. But later that same night, at about 9:45 p.m., a woman named Candy Taylor, who was 32 from Toledo, dropped out of a gondola on the Flight Commander ride and fell 60 feet to her death. The ride, which opened in 1990, had a 22-person pods that circled in a central tower. Riders could use a joystick to make the capsules go up or down or roll 360 degrees. Taylor, who had a blood alcohol content of 0.30%? According to the coroner's report, she had slipped through the ride's restraints into an empty seat, which did not have restraints in place, and when the pod was upside down, she fell out. But officials blamed design flaw. So, Kings Island modified the restraints in drive seats. The Flight Commander resumed operation a year later until the ride was closed in 1995 and dismantled. Yep. That's crazy, huh? So here's some notable deaths at Kings Island before we move on to the high school senior, which he is listed in here. Okay. Yeah, so he's listed in here. His name's John. All right, July 24th, 1976. John Jack McCann, age 20, a ranger at Kings Island's Lyon County Safari, had gotten out his vehicle and was mauled to death by lions. But his co-workers say that he was mean to that lion, and the lion kind of had it out for him already. So we're not going to mention this next one because we're going to give him his own little spotlight. So August 2nd, 1986. Mark Beckman, 26, of Youngtown, died after breaking his neck by diving from a 13-foot high platform into the 2-foot deep International Street fountain on July 26th. Wow. Okay. And August 5th, 1989, Kings Island tuba player Thomas Cowhall, 39, of Covington, died after he was struck by lightning while walking through the employee parking lot. Isn't that terrible? Rest in peace, Thomas. Jeez, what a way to go. What a way to go. All right. So the last death we're going to talk about at Kings Island is a high school senior who was decapitated in a moving elevator machinery at the Eiffel Tower. Let me take a little drink here. Okay. And I'm back. Alright, so a high school senior was decapitated in a moving elevator machinery at the Eiffel Tower attraction at Kings Island Amusement Park after possibly falling from the 300-foot tower. Authorities said the body of John Harder, who was 17, of Delaware Hayes High School, was found Friday night on top of an elevator car parked about 50 feet off the ground. When Warren County Sheriff's Department said the youth who had been attending a graduation party with classmates was decapitated. Authorities said Harder may have been climbing the smaller replica of the Paris Eiffel Tower when the incident occurred, but the exact circumstances of his death would not be determined until after an autopsy was completed. So yeah, what happened was he went where he wasn't supposed to go and he slipped and he fell. That's what happened. That's what happened. So that is all the people that passed away at Kings Island. And Missouri Jane, who's buried at Kings Island's parking lot. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is not far from Kings Island, in the heart of downtown Mason. So Kings Island is in Mason, Ohio. Go into Mason, Ohio, okay? Local legend looms at the Banana Leaf Modern Thai restaurant, okay? Long before it was a popular Thai restaurant, the historic brick building was a private residence. And as local records indicate, not just any residence, okay? The gorgeous home on the corner of downtown Mason's main drag was, and still is, the site of the only unsolved murder case in Mason's history. Rebecca McClung and her husband John moved into the brick building on Main Street in 1888. But Rebecca never left. Sorry, got excited. On April 12th, that's my birthday, 1901, Rebecca was found near the home's fireplace at 2:30 a.m. But what's weird is, a lady, a seamstress, lived with them in the house is the one who found her. According to the tales, she had been beaten to death with a piece of firewood. Rebecca's husband John claimed to have been in his barn at the time of the murder, and that blood found on his hands wasn't his wife's. He had blood on his clothes and on his hands, but it wasn't his wife's. But in fact, it's his own, due to his dry-ass skin. Instead, he blamed her death on people working outside the home. The evidence, however, told another story. There were no signs of a break-in, yet bloody footprints were discovered throughout the house. 2 people testified that they heard John coming down the stairs prior to hearing 4 blood-curdling screams from Rebecca. But John maintained his innocence, claiming that in trial he had no knowledge of the crime, and that even if he had committed the murder, he did not recall doing so. John was found not guilty, and no one was ever convicted of Rebecca's murder. John, much to the dismay of Rebecca's restless spirit, was buried next to his wife at nearby Rose Hill Cemetery. Today, locals claim that Rebecca never left the home on Main Street. In fact, a previous owner of the building once claimed to see Rebecca standing at the top of the home steps, dressed in black and wearing a long skirt. Another eyewitness said that he was in the office working when he heard someone come in. Upon turning around, the worker saw a woman dressed in old-fashioned clothing who asked where Rebecca McClung had been buried. When he turned around to look up at the burial record, the woman just disappeared. Finally, another one of the home's previous owners recalled an instance where she had opened up several windows in the basement to air it out. Before closing them at the end of the day, upon returning into the home later, 2 of the windows were once again open without explanation. Toppling chairs and slamming doors are also commonly reported in this Thai restaurant. Are legends of Mason's mysteries true? You'll have to make a visit to this Thai restaurant to decide for yourself. Now, I think John McClung killed his wife, Rebecca. I'm going to add this story to the links as well. So, usually this is the part of the stories where I have a listener submitted story. Listen, we are gearing up for spooky season, people. Spooky season is right around the corner. So I'm saving up all your stories that you're sending me for a compilation of listener stories for our Halloween episode. Because guess what? I'm so excited for Halloween, like I am every year. And I want to make sure I do your stories right. So if you have a story of your own that you would like me to share on October's episode, send me an email at underthemoonparapod@gmail.com, which will also be in the show's description and the episode's description. So again, If you have a story that you want to share for me to read on this podcast for the October episode, send me an email, underthemoonparapod@gmail.com. And I would love to share your story on the show. All right. So, I hope you enjoyed this episode from my studio here in Ohio. And this is the end of summer. I'm not too sad about it, because that means that spooky season is right around the corner. So if you like this episode, share it with a friend that likes all things that are spooky. And always remember, my friends, stay spooky. Ooh, that's a wrap. That's a wrap.